Hi there, it's Claire in the potting shed, and just thought we'd take a look at April in Maria Tunn's Biodynamic planting calendar. So just to kind of give you a bit of an overview, particularly if you're new to this calendar, and give you a few pointers as to how to start to understand how to work with it. And then it's not a rule book, this calendar, it's more what I would call a tool book. So it helps you and your garden connect to the bigger picture, to the cosmos. But once you start to understand it, you can then start to interpret it to suit your circumstances. So the first rhythm I always consider when planning my gardening work for the month is, where is the full moon? So I look in this solar and lunar aspects column here, and this is the new moon, and here is the full moon. And in my experience, if I sow my seeds in the week or so before full moon, I actually get a stronger germination, so my plants get off to a better start. So you might want to think about direct sowing. The soil will be warming up now in April, so you could consider direct sowing your leafy veg, spinach, chard and lettuce on leaf days. There's one here on the 20th. And you may want to think about sowing carrots and radish on the root days here. And there are a couple of flower days here. I'm going to be sowing some native wildflowers. I've got some cornflower and corn cockle seeds and some field poppies. And I love the bright colours, but it's also, I know that they are great flowers providing food for pollinators. And then we have a fruit day here as well. So that's a good day to think about direct sowing some peas. And if you want to start your squash and courgette off under cover, that would be a good day as well. Okay, so the next rhythm I would consider is the planting rhythm. So this is the descending moon, which is this green band here and a little bit here at the beginning of the month, and the ascending moon. And this is a fortnightly rhythm that really is shown where the moon is in relation to the earth. So for 2 weeks in the month it gets higher and higher in the sky, that's ascending moon, and for 2 weeks it descends a little bit more each night, and that is actually called northern transplanting time. Southern transplanting time refers to the southern hemisphere, so it's the opposite. So in this northern transplanting time, when the moon is kind of more directionally more down towards the earth, that's a really good time to think about working with soil and your plant's root connection to the soil. So it's a really good time to think about planting, transplanting, potting on, preparing your beds and your borders. You could be top dressing with compost and digging in your green manures. And you could be lifting and dividing and replanting clumps of herbs like mint or chives. And now that the soil's warmed up, it's actually a good time to think about applying horn manure. So you can find more information about stirring and applying the horn manure on the Biodynamic Association website. But it's a really, I would describe it as a bit of a wake-up call in the spring for your soil organisms. It kind of ensures that the right microorganisms are in the soil as a kind of inoculant. So if you wanted to do the horn manure, you could stir and spray in the afternoon or early evening in this northern transplanting time. But do avoid these blank days here. They're not very helpful for any of the biodynamic work. So ascending moon is the opposite gesture. So it's more about influencing the upper parts of your plant. So it's great time for harvesting, particularly if you're storing, and it's also a good time for cutting longer lasting flowers. So the other rhythm to consider is the Apogee Perigee. So again, if we look in the solar and lunar aspects, the apogee is here, AG, and perigee is here. And this is another of the moon's rhythms. The moon orbits the earth, and it does it in an egg shape, not in a kind of circle. So apogee is when the moon is furthest away from the earth in that orbit, and perigee is when it's closest. And perigee is always a blank day, and the moon is really too close to offer any helpful influences and can actually bring in some chaotic influences. So it's always best to avoid any sensitive work on a perigee. And then we have what we call the Sidereal Cycle, which provides us with the leaf fruit, root and flower days. So these are like the icing on the biodynamic cake. So if you can time your activities with these days, you're optimizing the moon's influence. So you could sow your flowers on a flower day, you could transplant tomatoes on a fruit day, you could hoe your lettuce on a leaf day, and that would bring in the leaf supporting forces into the soil, and as well as reducing the weeds and keeping moisture in the soil. So just a kind of handy hint for once the things start to really get going in the garden in April, always keep an eye open for your aphids, because that once you get the soft sappy growth on the plants, the aphids will move in, and vigilance is key for aphids. It's easier to get a small colony under control if you get them early, so you can rub them off with your fingers when you see them, or you can blast them with a water jet, or you can always mix up some soft soap in a water spray and keep spraying them. But you have to keep your eye out for the colonies, and they'll duplicate the minute you turn your back. And of course you can always keep an eye out for the emerging purple and orange ladybird larvae, which are your friends in the fight against the aphids, because they love eating green fly, black fly. So yeah, keep an eye open for those. Cheerio!